Hi guys, in this video I'm going to explain you some things so that you can meet the expectations from the project, okay? So the first thing that you will see once you download the template is that you have a white background, okay? Which you can manipulate later if you want. You just need to click here on this layers panel without any layer active. And in here you will be able to change the filling from that background, okay? You also have the fish tank, which is completely transparent, okay? It's just like the box. And so because you are going to put everything there, you are going to create the composition of your own fish tank. If you have had a fish tank before or you've seen a fish tank, you'll see they have ornaments, plants, and some other things, okay? And finally, you have this text layer, which is where you just need to double click here to edit with your own information. And then you click on the move tool so those changes are set. If you want to change the font, for example, you just need to click on it and you go to the character panel we activate at the beginning of the semester, and you can do the changes in here, okay? It's very simple. Now, what are you going to do in this project? I'm asking for 25 edited images. That means that your fish tank should have 25 different images and they should be edited with the selection tools. Now, remember, not all the selection tools are made for all the images, okay? That's why I gave you a reference chart before so that you can understand when and how to use them. The other thing that I'm expecting is for you to use the refinement options, which are in here, select and mask. Be very careful of the amount of feather you put to the edges. If you put 1 pixel of feather to your ornaments and to your fish, do the same for the rest of your elements. Otherwise, some of them will be super blurry, the others will be super sharp, and we don't want that. We want to keep consistency. The other thing you need to take care of also is perspective. This is the background and this is like the front of the box, okay? So there are going to be objects that will be placed here, but you need to take care of the sizes of the objects as well. That's why we're working with layers so that you can move them accordingly, okay? Now, the other thing that I saw during your lessons, when I was grading your assignments, is that you are using images with copyright marks on top of them, and we cannot use them, okay? And you are also searching for images that have low quality. We cannot use them as well because they get pixelated, and we want to have a very good project, okay? A high quality project. So I'm going to do a quick review again. We go to Google. You can use Google to search for images, but this is the correct way to find them. The first thing that I'm searching here is like a background. If you've seen a fish tank before, you'll notice that they have kind of like a printed background. So I was trying to find one background for my fish tank. So I put here reef because they are very colorful. And you need to click here in tools and then choose large to find larger images as well. And in here where you can see the commercial licenses, click where it says commercial and other licenses. Those are the images that we have permission to use, but also you may see that some of them have watermarks because these are commercial. So you need to take the time to find images like this, but that they don't have watermarks, and there are a lot. If you don't find anything in Google, use the websites that I shared with you, like Unsplash. You will also be able to find many stuff in there, okay? And don't do right click here over the image because you will be downloading just the thumbnail or like the preview of the image. You need to click on it, and this is the image that you want to download. Here's the size in pixels. You need to find images that are over 1,000 pixels, okay, to be considered high quality images. Now, over here in my document, now I'm just going to give you a quick review on the selection tools and some tips that will make your fish tank look great. I am going to place my background, which I already downloaded. And remember that I showed you how to use skew. Don't abuse this transforming option because the images lose their shape and their perspective, and we want to create a fish tank that is close to real. Okay, so I'm going to resize my image and I want to put it here in the background. Now if it's too big, for example, remember, if you press shift, you can resize this image without having those constrained proportions, okay? And the other thing is that, for example, if I don't want this part, like the water, because it doesn't fit, I just want to use it for this part, I can decrease the opacity to see until where I am going to cut this. I will rasterize my layer, of course, and then I can use my rectangular marquee tool. I'm not applying I'm not applying any feather because I don't want that effect. I'm just selecting that part and get rid of the excess. And like that, I have a background for my fish tank. Now, since we're working with water, water causes reflection, right? So maybe if this is paper, like it's printed, maybe it will reflect in both sides. So how can we do that? I am going to duplicate the layer, okay? This is like in Illustrator. If you press Alt and drag, you can make a copy of the layer, or if you press Command J, you can also have a copy of your layer, okay? Let me increase the opacity to 100 again. There we go. Perfect. Now, if this is going to reflect to this side, I am not going to do this, right? Because that's weird. I need to flip my image. You can find those options in Edit. If you go to Edit, Transform, you will find these options here. So I'm going to use Flip Horizontal, okay? And then I'm going to bring here because I want the same image reflected in this part, okay? I want the same image. So I'm going to move it a little bit, and then I can use the skew options that I taught you to resize this image, right? But since I don't need the entire image, I can just select part of it, okay? Invert my selection so I can get rid of that excess, and I can manipulate this space much better, okay? I can also move this with my keyboard arrows, and then I'm going to proceed to resize this. So if I press Command, I can edit, remember this, I can edit these spaces so I can manipulate my image better, and I place it. Now, if I don't want the reflection to be super intense like the background, because this is not printed, only this, we can play with the opacity to give it another effect, okay? We can give it an opacity. You can change the background of your fish tank later so it matches your entire design. I recommend you to manipulate the background once you're done, okay? So, but you can have a cool like reflection effect there. That's the first tip I'm giving you, to use the skew. Now, this image, for example, has a good contrast between the object and the background. So this gives me the opportunity to use different selection tools, right? If we use, for example, the lasso, it's going to take me forever and the selection won't be accurate. If I use the polygonal lasso tool, maybe I can use it for the tail, but when I get to this part, since it's rounded, my selection won't be that good. And so we have other options like the magnetic lasso or the quick selection tool. So I'm going to rasterize the layer, and I'm just going to paint around because because I only want to keep the fish, okay? So I'm going to paint around here my selection. I can move it around, okay, to have all my fish perfectly selected. As you can see, since the color of the background is really close to the colors of the fish, it's taking a little longer for me to select it. But the tip that I gave you when we started, you need to work with high levels of zoom so that you can see exactly what you're doing, okay? Let me click in there. I will fix it in a second. So I press Alt so I can get rid of all these excess. Now, One thing that I saw a lot, if your tool is not cooperating with you, like in this case, that's what I chose this image. It doesn't mean you need to continue using the same tool. You can go and grab, for example, the polygonal lasso and press Shift in this case to add the selection that you're missing, okay? Because I need this part, I want this part. So I'm going to combine it with my polygonal lasso tool, and I close my selection, and that selection will be added to the same one. You don't have to get stuck with the selection tool you have. So use the selection tools in your favor, not the opposite. Now, once you have your selection well done, that your object is perfectly selected, don't proceed to delete the background yet. Go to select and mask, okay? Go there and make sure that your selection is well done. As you can see, I already have some effects there, so I'm going to put everything in 0 so you can see my selection better. As you can see, it's still weird, right? So I can increase, move a little bit, not so much because I don't want to lose the shape from my object, just a little bit, maybe 10. And feather, if I decide to put 1 of feather or 1.5 or 2, I'm going to use the same feather for all my images. Remember this, okay? I can also shift the edge. Look, and overlap. Shift edge, remember that if maybe my selection is good, but it's still taking part of the background and I don't want that, I can shift the edge to move it closer to my object so I can avoid contaminating my object with the background, okay? So once I click OK, now we can proceed to get rid of the background. Since I have my object selected, and that's what I want to keep. Remember, you invert the selection. Shift, Command, I, okay? And we press delete. And we have a perfect selection there. Now, the other thing. Once you've deleted the background, don't get too excited and grab the move tool and start moving it around because you will leave ghost selections. And we don't want that. So, before you move it, deselect, Command D, and then we press V so we can resize our object and manipulate it around our space, okay? That's one. I'm going to leave it big so that you can see. So those are the tips that I'm giving you. Remember, choose the appropriate selection tool for the object. 2, use the refinement options. 3, if your selection tool is not cooperating, jump and grab another one, okay? The selection tools are here for you. Now, this blue thing that you see here is part of the background because this is more transparent, right? So how can I use my selection tools to make this part transparent? In this case, I'm going to grab, for example, the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to do like a random selection over here around the blue area. Let me show you. Something like this. I have the same image edited, right? But if I go here to select and mask, this is the part that I'm selecting. Let me, yeah, something like that. So it grabs a little bit more of this part, but I'm increasing feather, okay? Let's see if it works. I'm going to increase the feather and I will click OK. Now, with that selection active, for example, I can press delete. But as you can see, it wasn't completely deleted. It was deleted kind of like a feathering style. So when I put a background, for example, if I change the fill of my document, I put it blue, you can see how the effect of the tail is more like faded instead of being plain, okay? This is another effect you can use for your work. So the tails, because they are very, they are kind of transparent, so they can blend better with the background. That's another tip. If you want to put also like water reflections, let me undo the background. Let me change it to white. If you want to put water reflections, for example, you can also use your selection tools. Remember what we did with the shapes. In this case, you can see some ray lights happening in there. So just grab your polygonal lasso tool, use another layer, and find your source of light, for example, like this. Fill it out with white, okay? Fill it out with white and decrease the opacity. But as you can see, these edges look super weird, right? So if you're thinking the same thing that I am, we need to apply feather. So if I put 20, for example, and create some ray lights like so, we fill them out, okay? And we have some light effects that we can decrease the opacity so they blend better with my image, okay? And again, if we change the color of the background, we can see those ray lights, and they will see very good once we have everything put here, okay? So remember, selection tools are your best friends. You just need to choose them correctly. You have opacity as an extra aid for special effects in your work. Remember to find images that are high quality. You can use feather, you can use opacity, use select and mask, and I'm really looking forward to see what your results are, okay?